Akin, a webinar on voter education and registration. I am Cadet Girl Scout Sirlevi Granali from Leyte Girl Scout Council, Visayas Region Girl Representative to the Central Board.
And I am Cadet Girl Scout Eliza Sofia Manundo from North Cotabato Girl Scout Council, Western Mindanao Region Girl Representative to the Central Board. And we are your moderators for today's event. This webinar aims to encourage Girl Scouts who are new registrants and voters, or Girl Scouts who are 18 years old and above, as well as Girl Scouts will be 18 years on or before May 9, 2022 election day, especially those who are first-time voters to exercise their civic duty by registering and voting.
To officially start our program, may I request everyone to join us in the Girl Scout prayer, a time for healing and sharing. This will be followed by the rededication to the Girl Scout Promise and Law to be led by Cadet Girl Scout Eliza Manundo. A Girl Scout prayer, a time for healing and sharing. Dear God, we call on you in truth. Hear our cry for help and lift the fallen and burdened among us. Turn our fear into courage and replace our helplessness with hope. God of compassion and kindness, grant us your promise of comfort and relief, and guide us to share our resources with those who are in dire need of help. Knit us together as one GSP family, considerate and caring, serving you and our country at all times. On your honor, see us through this crisis and turn today into a time for caring and healing. Amen.
Dedication to the Girl Scout Promise and Law. On my honor, I will do my duty to God and my country, to help other people at all times and to live by the Girl Scout law. A Girl Scout's honor is to be trusted. A Girl Scout is loyal. A Girl Scout is helpful. A Girl Scout is a friend to all and sister to every other Girl Scout. A Girl Scout is courteous. A Girl Scout respects living things. A Girl Scout is disciplined. A Girl Scout is self-reliant. A Girl Scout is thrifty. A Girl Scout is clean in thought, word, and deed. We are all elated to see everyone gathered here today. The events in the past year up to the present sure have been different because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is undeniable that the world took a shift, bringing most transactions into the digital world. Thus, we are all gathered here in this virtual hall today. Right, Atsir?
I definitely agree with you on that, Aliza. And speaking of the digital shift, that didn't exclude the voter registration for the upcoming 2022 Philippine elections. But before we go any further, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the following. Our resource persons, Honorable Maria Rowena Amelia V. Guanzon and Dr. Jayeel Cornelio, officers and members of the Central Board, headed by our National President, Dr. Christina Lim Yuson. Officers and members of the regional committees and council boards, the professional staff in the national, regional, and council levels, headed by National Executive Director Ms. Maria Dolores T. Santiago, the Communications Committee, headed by GSP National Secretary and Communications Committee Chairperson Ms. Hyacinth B. Banguero, and of course, our fellow Girl Scouts who are tuned in, listening, and watching right now.
We are currently live on the official Facebook page of the Girl Scouts of the Philippines. So please share this with your co-Girl Scouts or even non-Girl Scout friends who are new or first-time voters and encourage them to participate. You may also leave your name, council, and region in the comment section below together with your thoughts and reactions.
Again, To everyone, welcome.
Let us now lend our ears to Ms. Hyacinth B. Banguero as she introduces and enlightens us about today's event.
Thank you very much, Sir Lovey and Eliza, for the introduction and for being our hosts for this afternoon's event. So, a blessed afternoon to each and everyone, especially to our National President, Dr. Christina Lim Yuson, our National Executive Director, Tita Maria Dolores Santiago, to the national officers of the Girl Scouts of the Philippines who are joining us via Facebook, members of the Central Board, National Communications Committee present here in the Zoom platform, to all the volunteers and staff of the Girl Scouts of the Philippines, may it be in the regions, in the councils, or even in the national level, or even our friends from the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. Welcome in this webinar. So we are very blessed to have esteemed speakers this afternoon. They will be properly introduced later. So this event really is for you girls, especially those who are 18 years old, first-time voters, and are about to turn 18 come May 2022. We designed this event for you to convince you that there is a need for us to do something in order to make a difference, may it be in a very simple way or in a greater scale of things. So we know for a fact that there are still a lot of you, maybe a lot of Girl Scouts or young people who were not able to register yet. So that is why we're here. And of course, that is other than the fact that the Girl Scouts of the Philippines, if you do not know yet, is actually founded by two women who were suffragists. So they were the ones who really fought hard to make sure that we women will have the right to vote in this country, our beloved Philippines. So we hope that you will find today's event meaningful and finally take action to register for you to be able to vote. So I won't hold you any longer, as I know you're all eager to learn very important matters this afternoon. So sit back, relax, and let's all make a difference. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much, Tita Haya, for that insightful introduction. At this point in time, let us extend our warm virtual applause as we welcome GSP National President, Dr. Christina Lim Yuson, for her welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, dear friends, my dear Girl Scouts. This is my first live webinar as your new president, and I am just as excited as you are. You know, one of the things that I have been doing in these last 3 weeks is to induct new officers around some councils and some of the regions. And my messages are really getting shorter. And what was important was to tell them about the voters' registration. Because as Haya had mentioned, two of our Girl Scout founders, which is Josefa Llanes Escoda and Pilar Dalgolim, in 1935 worked hard. They went around the country campaigning that women can vote because during that time only men voted. So they were able to garner the votes, and that is why today we are voting. And it's very important that this is your opportunity, your privilege, and your civic duty to register. If you are now 17 but will be 18 by May next year, you can vote. And for those who have not voted the last election, please go and register yourself again because it is important that we get the women's vote. Let us remember that we are part of nation building, that we are doing this not for ourselves, but for the future of our country. And this afternoon, we have two very distinguished guests who will tell us more about this. But I appeal to you, please, if you are 17, already 18 or 19 and have not voted, it is time to go to the COMELEC and register your vote. You can do it online, but I think you have to still go to the COMELEC to present your papers and what's necessary. So let us cheer for our country because that is in our promise and law to love God and my country. Don't forget that. Thank you very much and a warm welcome to all of us.
Thank you, Tita Nina, for that uplifting message. I am sure everyone is as excited as we are for today's event. Tama ba ako, Ate Sear?
Tamang-tama ka dyan, Ali. Ngunit, bago pa man tayo magtungo sa highlight ng event natin today, magtanong ko muna, are you already a registered voter?
Hindi pa po, ate. Ikaw ba?
Well, I am a registered voter, and as an active social media user, I've seen many young people like us have registered as well and are encouraging their friends to register too.
Balita ko din ay karamihan sa kasama natin ngayon ay mga first-time voters pagdating ng 2022 elections. Kaya naman, hindi na natin ito patatagalin pa. At this juncture, may I call Ms. Jennifer Aquino, Communications Committee member, to introduce the resource person for the first session.
Thank you very much, Ms. Manundo. I'm very honored and very happy to introduce my good friend, Dr. Cornelio. Dr. Jayeel Cornelio is Associate Professor and the Director of the Development Studies Program at the Ateneo de Manila University. Dr. Cornelio's writings on youth, religion, and social change have appeared in a number of leading journals around the world. O di ba pang Miss Universe? He is the editor of Rethinking Filipino Millennials, Young People Reinterpreting Religion, published in 2020, and author of Being Catholic in Contemporary Philippines, Young People Reinterpreting Religion in 2016. Dr. Cornelio finished his PhD in sociology at the National University of Singapore and was a postdoctoral fellow at the Max Planck Institute for the Study of Religious and Ethnic Diversity. Ang haba. He has also held academic posts in Hong Kong, England, Romania, and Belgium. Dr. Cornelio is also a regular contributor to the Thought Leader section of Rappler. Everybody, my very good friend, Dr. Jayeel Cornelio.
Maraming salamat, Jen. Maraming salamat din po sa Girl Scouts of the Philippines. I take it as a privilege to be able to share with you my thoughts and my ideas, my research as a sociologist. Some of you might already be aware na gaya na nabanggit ni Jen kanina, I am a sociologist of youth. And I do a lot of work on how young people are changing right now. At kasama na dito yung political at electoral participation ng mga kabataan natin ngayon. In the next 30 minutes or so, just join me in this journey, I suppose, no? Para maunawaan natin ano ba yung kalagayan ng mga kabataang Pilipino ngayon. I understand that many of you who are watching us, joining us right now, via Facebook Live, might be voting for the first time in 2022. Some of you may have already voted in the previous elections, the previous one, or the presidential election in 2016, or even earlier. Gayon pa man, regardless of your stage in life, I hope na yung mga lessons na pag-uusapan natin ngayon will inspire new but also critical ways of thinking about how else can we encourage young people, one another, tayo. Paano natin mahihikayat ang bawat isa na makilahok sa eleksyon at higit sa lahat dun sa democratic environment natin dito sa Pilipinas. Some of you might be aware na in many ways our democracy is being challenged. At tayo sa lipunan natin, tayo mga kabataan ay inaasahan na ipaglalaban ang ating demokrasya at kasama ito sa ating mga tungkulin, lalo na dito sa Girl Scouts of the Philippines, elections, and the Filipino youth. Let me start with this quote. You should see on your screen right now, sinabi ito ng spokesperson ng Commission on Elections, si spokesperson James Jimenez. Sabi niya, I challenge you, as you see on your screen, and your generation to lead the way forward so that the rest of us may follow. I have no doubt that you are up to the task. You have to be. Wala kayong choice. You have to be. An entire nation is depending on you. So para siya nagsispeech no, sa Girl Scouts. But this is also an open letter no, to the youth. No? Challenging us. No? Sinasama ko pa rin po ang sarili ko no? Bilang still young at heart. Naniniwala tayo na hindi kayo nag-iisa, mga kabataan. And James Jimenez is challenging us to lead the way forward. Meron pang isang nagsabi, ito ay si Jayeel Roperos. Siya ang president naman ng National Union of Students in the Philippines, NUSP. Siya ay isang college student right now. Sabi niya sa isang kanyang statement, as youths, no, plural, mga kabataan bilang mga kabataan, which make up a substantial proportion of the voting population, we have a huge role to play in the upcoming election. And that is to vote for comprehensive and competitive leaders. Si John Deal naman, hindi lang siya hopeful. She's actually, sinasabi niya na, oo, tayo yung substantial proportion of the voting population, tayo yung mamaya ipapakita ko sa inyo yung statistical data. Pero sinasabi niya na hindi tayo pwedeng matulog. We have a huge role to play in the upcoming election. And that is to vote for, hindi lang bumoto, hindi lang register to vote, kundi to vote for comprehensive and competitive leaders. So may hugot no, si John Deal sa kanyang statement na ito. President ng National Union of Students in the Philippines. Ano yung makikita natin sa dalawang statements or quotes na ito, Girl Scouts? Sinasabi ay, the youth will save us. Mga kabataan, kayo ang magliligtas sa atin. You are our saviors. Girl Scouts, you are our saviors. You and your friends and your peers and your mga kabarkada, yung mga kasama mo sa, yung mga fina-follow mo sa Twitter, ang mga kasama mo sa Instagram, you and your peers will save us. Yun ang dating ng statement sa atin. Very hopeful, but also challenging. Now, bilang sociologist, at trabaho naming mga sociologists, ay ungkatin to question, how valid is this claim? Kayo daw ng mga kabataan na magliligtas sa atin. Paulit-ulit nating narinig si Jose Rizal, mga kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan, and that's true, and that's good. Now the question is, ganun ba ang realidad natin ngayon? In the next part of my presentations, ngayon na ilatag ko na yung aking direksyon, magbibigay ako sa inyo ng mga tatlong thoughts. Ipapakita ko sa inyo, number one, on the left side of your screen, yung statistics. Who are the registered youth? No? Ipapakita ko sa inyo ano ang kalagayan ng mga kabataan ngayon. Sino ba ang mga nakapag-register na? Marami nga ba? Pagkatapos, bullet point number 2, nakikita nyo on your screen, ay youth voting patterns. Totoo ba na may youth vote? Okay, kung boboto ang lahat ng mga kabataan, maboboto nga ba nila yung mga tamang mga kandidato? So dito babanggit ako ng mga datos ayon sa aking sariling research. Sino ba ang mga binoto ng mga kabataan nung nakaraang eleksyon? Yan, exciting yan. At pangatlo, yung woke. I'm sure maraming sa inyo nakakaintindi dito sa salitang woke. Yung mga mulat, yung mga gising, at yung mga others versus the others. Sino yung mga yon? Youth on social media. Ilalahad ko sa inyo one by one itong mga ito and hopefully may mga mapulot tayo mga ideas from this data. If you're ready, let's start. The first point is statistics. Aba, ladies and gentlemen, or ladies, Girl Scouts, bibigyan ko kayo ng statistical snapshots. 2016 presidential election, akalain nyo po, 55.7 million ng mga Pilipino ang registered voters. Ilan ang bumoto? 43.7 million. Kikita nyo yan sa inyong screen right now. 43.7 million ang bumoto. So that translates to about 78% voter turnout. Depende sa datos na paghuhugutan natin, sasabihin ng ibang data ay nasa 80+%, pero dito sa aking nakita, ito ay nasa 78%. Sa aking kinompute, no? I computed it. Now, the question, so ibig sabihin, mataas ang voter turnout. Medyo bumaba lang yan noong 2019 senatorial elections at ganoon naman talaga ang nangyayari sa mga midterm or senatorial elections ay nasa 75% or so. Pero mataas pa rin. Bear in mind, Girl Scouts, na itong statistics na ito ay mataas compared sa ibang mga bansa. In other countries, mababa ang voter turnout, 60% or less. So are we an electorally participative country? The answer is yes, we are very high. Sana maganda kung 100%, pero hindi naman nangyayari talaga yon. Ito pa, ipapakita ko naman sa inyo ito on your screen right now, yung tinatawag na voter profile ngayong 2021, the latest data. Sabi ng COMELEC, 60 million na ang nakapag-register ng mga voters. So mas mataas na than last year. No? Nagkaroon kasi ng paglilinis, tapos diba, naghikayat sila ng mga new voter registrants. Pumalo na ito sa 60 million according sa latest reports. I can imagine some of you have already registered. At kanina nabanggit ni Dr. Yuson, pwede nang mag-register ngayon online. If you haven't done so, please do so. You just have to show up at COMELEC, maybe after the ECQ kung kayo ay nandito sa Metro Manila. O, tingnan naman natin. Paano yung mga youth profile? 18 to 24 years old, okay? 18 to 24 years old, sa buong Pilipinas, ang 18 to 24 years old ay pumapalo sa 19.5 million. Ganon kayo karami. College students, young professionals, you are about 19.5 million in total. Tandaan natin, ang Philippine population ay nasa 115 million na, thereabouts. No? So, a little less than 20% ay mga 18 to 24 college students. Pero, ilan na nag-register? 11.1 million. Ayon ito sa aking latest data na nahango. Tingnan naman natin yung mga ate at kuya ninyo. Ito yung mga 25 to 29 years old. How many are they in total? 9.3 million. Pero ilan ang nag-register? Actually, halos lahat. 8.8 million registered voters. So, sum it up, Girl Scouts, makikita ninyo 19.5, 9.3, 11.5 plus 8.8. So kung titingnan natin yung registered voters, nasa 20 million ng registered voters ay napasok sa age bracket na 18 to 29 years old. You are within 18 to 29 years old and you constitute about 19-20 million voters. Pag divide nyo yun dun sa number of registered voters over 60, that's about 2/3. 20, 40, 60, 1/3, about 33% of the voting population ay nasa kabataan. Ganon tayo kalakas ang 18 to 29 years old. Para lang mag-gets ninyo kung gaano to ka-powerful, si President Duterte noong 2016, siya po ay nanalo with only 16 million votes. Lampas pa dyan ang bilang na nasa 18 to 29 years old. So, therefore, kung numbers lang ang pagbabatayan natin, Girl Scouts, anong makikita natin? You are more powerful than you imagine. The numbers say that you are far more powerful than you can imagine. Sasabihin nyo, Dr. Cornelio, isang boto lang naman ako. Kung isa ka nga lang ang boboto. Ang realidad ay, there are about 18, 19, 20 million of you within that age bracket who can actually shape our elections. So, tama si Dr. Yuson, please register and make sure that you vote. That's the voter profile. Ngayon, okay, dito na ha, prepare na kayo, Girl Scouts, kasi I'm going to be a little challenging now. Okay, so hopeful, check. Statistics, mukhang maganda ang figures, pwede pang ma-improve, pero maganda na, kumbaga pasado na. Let's move on to the next part. Ito yung second bullet point ko kanina sa outline ko. Ang tanong, Dr. Cornelio, sino ba ang binoboto ng mga kabataan nito? Bilang isang sociologist, lagi akong ini-interview. Yan, ni na Jen, ang nag-introduce sa akin. Si Girl Scout Jen. Lagi niya akong ini-interview para sa Probe documentaries. Ini-interview din ako ng ibang mga journalists. Sino ba ang binoboto ng mga kabataan? So, nagsusulat ako every month sa thought leader section ng Rappler. So, noong 2019, ang ginawa ko, kinausap ko yung mga kaibigan ko sa Pulse Asia, survey company. Bigyan nyo na sa akin yung datos. Fellow din po ako ng Pulse Asia. So sabi ko, pahingi naman ng datos, tapos bigyan mo sa akin ang age brackets. So senatorial elections, sa tingin niyo sino ang binoto ng mga kabataang Pilipino? Sige, sarili ninyo na lang. Kasi baka sensitive masyado kung sasabihin nyo sa akin kung sino ang inyong mga binoto them. Well, ang sasabihin na sa ng iba, yung mga na-active sa Twitter, nako, ang binoto namin magbabanggit lang ako ng pangalan just to drive home the point. Binoto po namin yung mga talagang sa tingin namin ay mga matatalino at magagaling at may pagmamahal sa bayan. Sino-sino ba yun? Binoto namin si Chel Jokno, si Mary Palmenares, si Samira Gutok, yung mga yan yung talagang kahit hindi sila sikat pero mahal nila ang bayan. Okay? So, tinignan ko yung datos. I ran the survey at ito ipapakita ko sa inyo. Kasi ang ingay-ingay nila sa Twitter, talagang akala mo sila na yung mga mananalo. On your left ay 18 to 24 years old. On your right, the right column are 25 to 34 years old. Aba, ang number one sa 18 to 24, marami sa inyo nasa age bracket na yan, ay si Lito Lapid. Sa kabilang banda naman, 25 to 34 ay si Cynthia Villar. Sa 18 to 24, Lapid, Grace Poe, Bongo, Bong Revilla, Cynthia Villar, Pimentel, Cayetano, si Bato de la Rosa, si Senator de la Rosa, Angara, Estrada, Binay. Ang layo, actually hindi pala, si Aquino nandito, si Bambam, baka yung iba sa inyo, binoto siya, pero ang layo, ang layo ni Aquino, halos sumabo sa kanya kung kilala niyo si Larry Gadon, no? Controversial yan. Si Colmenares, napakalayo. Sa 25 to 34, ganun din yung pattern na makikita natin, Girl Scouts. Hindi talaga lumabas yung mga pangalan na karaniwang makikita natin sa Twitter. Yung mga akala natin, yung youth vote, mukhang hindi pala totoo. Kasi ang binoto, in other words, ng mga kabataang Pilipino 18 to 24 at 25 to 34 ay exactly or similar doon sa voting patterns ng kalahatan sa Pilipinas. At least according to survey. Mahirap na kasing i-dissect, yung i-disentangle yung data, yung totoong data from the elections. Pero at least yan, makikita natin yung preferences ng mga kabataan. Now, of course, I want, nasa sa inyo yan, I leave it up to you to reflect on this. Masaya ba kayo sa voting patterns na ito ng mga kabataan? Masaya ba kayo na ito yung mga naging choices? Dahil sabi ni Nahaya dito sa comment, reality bites. Sabi ni Jen Aquino sa comment, woke pa more, kaloka, no? Si Beng Santiago, sabi niya ay they voted for actors and actress. Ayun. So, ayan po ang inyong mga comments. Kung sa Facebook, kung may mga comments kayo, it would be nice to just actually be reading them. I'm seeing that many of you are coming from the Visayas. Maayong unto sa inyong atanan sa akong mga kaigsuon dira sa Bisaya ug sa Mindanao. Thank you so much for joining our conversation. Please share with us your thoughts. Masaya po ba kayo sa voting patterns na ito? Okay. So, eto pa. Reality bites, gaya ng sinabi kanina, reality bites. Yung mga mas matatalino daw at mas nasa nakakataas ay mas nag-iisip. Tingnan natin kung ano yung naging resulta ng voting patterns sa nakaraang elections. Again, wala akong judgment po dito. Gusto ko lang ipakita sa inyo yung statistical facts. Ito ay hango sa exit polls ng SWS. Ito yung after bumoto ng isang tao, tatanungin siya ng SWS sa survey, sino po ang binoto ninyo? Hindi yung iboboto, kundi yung binoto, past tense na. At lumalabas, Class A, B, and C. Class A, B, and C ay ay pinaka-dominant, 45.9% binoto nila si President Duterte. Mahina lahat, no? Ang ABC sa ibang kandidato. Class D at Class E, sino po ang pinaka-binoto nila? 39.6 at 35.3%. Pumalo rin sila in favor of President Duterte. Yung mga edukado, sinong binoto nila? College graduates, 49.2%. Binoto nila si President Duterte. Hindi nila binoto si Grace Poe, si Rojas, si Miriam Santiago na very, very smart, no? Very eloquent and articulate, ay 6.7% lang ang bumoto sa kanya. Ang high school graduates natin, only high school graduates, ay bumoto again for President Duterte. Nakikita ko yung mga comments. Thank you so much, Haya, for copying them dito sa chat. No? Hindi ko makita yung sa Facebook. Sabi ni Karil De Leon, honestly, no. Mukhang hindi masaya si Karil. Nakita niyo yung voting pattern. Si Ferdinand Abayon, sabi niya, older peeps sometimes don't vote wisely. Aba. Ang sinisi ni Ferdinand, ang mga tito, tita, ate at kuya. Okay, older peeps sometimes don't vote wisely. Si Beng, very disappointing figures. Stemarichin, na-scam po tayo. Ayan, okay? Tumalabas na po yung ating mga political colors. Na-scam po tayo. So, dito pa lang, nakikita na natin, ladies and gentlemen, may mismatch yung hopeful messages na nakita natin kanina. May mismatch din yung nakita natin na, dami-dami pala natin, 1/3. Doon sa reality bites. Sa reality. Okay? Naalala ko kami ni Jen, nung nagte-taping kami, just give me a few more minutes, I'm almost done. Tapos gusto ko magkaroon tayo ng open forum. I believe meron tayong open forum. Si Jen, nung ini-interview niya ako about voting patterns sa mga kabataan, hindi siya makapaniwala na ito yung data. Girl Scout Jen, the reality has bitten you just now. So, marami pa tayong kailangan gawin beyond the elections, before, during, and beyond the elections. In other words. Okay, last point. Paano naman yung mga woke, Dr. Cornelio? Paano naman yung mga woke? Diba, ang dami-dami niyan sa Twitter. Maingay yan sa social media, sa Twitter. Galit na galit sila na pinulitika yung pagkapanalo ni Heidelin sa Olympics. Doc Yuson, thank you for pointing out yung vote buying. If you want, let's talk about vote buying later on. May mga research din ako dyan, no, sa vote buying. Hindi ko pinasok dito pero mamaya ikikwento ko sa inyo. Sabi ni Jen, thanks for bursting our bubble. Yes, that's my job. So the question is, will the woke save us? Doon po sa mga ate, kuya, lolo, lola, tito, tita na nanonood ngayon na hindi naiintindihan yung woke ay ginagamit yan sa Twitter, lalo na sa Twitter, para i-describe ng mga kabataan yung sarili nila na actually kami ay politically aware, politically conscious kami. Hindi kami naniniwala sa lahat ng sinasabi ni spokesperson or ni candidate or ni president na ganyan. Para nagpa-fact check daw sila, ganyan. So mga woke sila, galit sila parate, no? Sa social media. Ako, would I consider myself woke? Obviously, I would consider myself woke. Pero ang gusto ko lang tingnan natin ay, again, i-problematize natin yon kasi may mga paggamit yung salitang woke, mulat, na sa tingin ko ay hindi nararapat at pwede pa nating pag-isipan ng mas maigi kung paano natin ito mapapalalim. Okay? Sabi ni Jen, woke is politically aware, may stand, paninindigan. Okay, great. Sige. Ayan, so meron talaga tayong time for Q&A. So will the woke save us? Ngayon, I'm going to burst your bubbles again, Girl Scouts. So please be ready. Doc Yuson, I hope hindi po kayo nagsisi na ako ang in-invite ninyo. Don't worry, we will end on a very hopeful note. No? Hopeful tayo. Sinabihan ako ni Girl Scout Jen. Sino ba yan nasa woke Twitter na yan? Kung kayo po ay active sa Twitter, ay sana makita, I'm sure familiar sa inyo itong mga figures na ito. Maingay, very vocal sila sa Twitter. Ako, very active din sa Twitter. Alam ko kanina may nagbanggit na siya ay active sa social media, so I'm sure you would recognize these figures. Si Chai Fanasier, isang actress, at saka si Juan Miguel Severo, isang writer, isang spoken word poet. Yan. Nabanggit niyo to sa isang article na kinopy-paste ko lang mula sa isang website. Ang mga woke daw ay yung mga Filipinos na ini-express nila yung kanilang political opinions in 280 characters for all the world to see. China-challenge daw nila, second sentence there, in the age of fake news, everyone will surely appreciate the presence of genuine watchdogs and keen observers like Juan Miguel Severo, Irish Dizon, Typhon Nasir, and Twitter users who handle the accounts Punong Bayan _ Jai Kabar, and Millennial of Manila. Actually, kilala ko yung mga yon at talagang ano yan, kada minuto meron nila may tinitweet at usually criticismos sa pamahalaan. Sabi pa, these personalities are saving the country from historical revisionism. Ayan. Through viral memes. Ayan. Healthy discourses and witty comebacks. Ililigtas daw nila tayo. Okay. Sige. Thank you very much po sa pagliligtas ninyo. No? And nakikita natin na yan na nga ang sinasabi rin ng article na ito. Pero yun nga ba ang realidad? Bago ako tumungo doon, babasahin ko lang yung ibang mga comments dito. Sabi ni Bombing Hu, many young voters are also influenced by the political reality of the kabataan sa barangay being influenced by their barangay officials. Bombing, share mo naman, how exactly are they influenced? Ano ba yan? Vote buying, political dynasty? So halimbawa ako, familiar ako sa Sangguniang Kabataan, yung SK, nagagamit yan. Halimbawa bilang extension ng mga political dynasties. So yung mga anak ng mayor or ng barangay captain ay siya rin ang SK chair. Yun ba ang tinutukoy mo, or are you thinking of other schemes, no? Maybe later sa open forum if you could share, I would love to hear. Kasi baka yun yung entry point natin bilang Girl Scouts para matulungan ang mga political consciousness. Sabi naman ni Ferdeline, Doc Cornelio, grabe ang pattern pala. Sana maiiba this coming 2022. Hopefully maging mga woke na talaga. Oo. Sabi ni Kyla Carol Oda, yes, the woke can and will save us if they really walk the talk, like supporting not only by words but putting into action, like voting for the people we see and believe are effective. Heart, heart, heart. Salamat ni Kyla Carel. Heart, heart, heart din dyan. At saka yung comment naman ni Haya, register the vote. Talaga all caps, ano? So, paano ko ba bibigkasin ito sa listing? Pasigaw ba? Register the vote and vote wisely. Ang tunay na lingkod bayan na hindi pahirap sa mga mamamayan. Kumilos tayo. Huwag tayong manahimik. Ilagay natin sa balota ang lingkod bayan na may totoong puso sa mamamayan at hindi yung magaling lang kapag malapit na ang halalan. Celestine, that is so encouraging to me. We are aware that politicians are just using young people. Lumabas ito sa research ko noon. After the elections, nasa ng kabataan? Isyapwera na. Think about it. Kaya, babanggitin ko yan sa conclusion ko. No? Just a few more slides. Sabi ni Jen, Celestine for 2022. And from Raz, last comment from Raz Nosete, for our beloved country in 2022. 10 amen signs. Okay. With Hail Mary, our Father, glory be at all the mysteries of the Rosary. Ayan. So, balik tayo. Woke Twitter, they will save us. Ito ang problema natin, mga kapatid. Ang problema ko sa woke, gaya ng isang isinulat ko noong 2019, ay elitista. Alam nyo po, bigyan ko lang kayo ng kasaysayan. Yung salitang woke, nagsimula yan sa karanasan ng mga African Americans sa US. Obviously, alam natin yung kalagayan nila, racism, nagkaroon ng Black Lives Matter na kasi pinapatay ng mga police officers, brutality. Ginamit nila yung salitang woke. Hindi para sabihin na mas matalino tayo. Hindi kundi sinasabi nila na gumising tayo. Kasi pag hindi tayo gumising, tayo ay patuloy na i-discriminate, patuloy na sasaktan. Pag makita nila itim tayo yung kanilang huhulihin, pero ang totoong gumawa ng masama ay yung puti. Kasi racism is systemic and there is a sociological reasoning for it. It's about power, it's about class, it's about money, it's about history. Ginamit naman na slaves ang mga African Americans, tandaan natin, hundreds of years ago. And it was not too long ago na na nagkaroon talaga sila ng kalayaan. And up until now, ginagamit ito to discriminate against them. Yung woke, syempre ginamit din yan ng Asian Lives Matter too, no? Kasi hindi na mga Black Americans na tinitira ngayon, kundi mga Asians na. Sa US, no? US is a little very difficult society. Yung konsepto ng woke, in other words, ginamit yon ng mga sinasamantala, ng mga marginalized, para palakasin yung loob, patatagin yung loob nila. Dito sa Pilipinas, pag nakikita ko siya sa Twitter, yung woke, may yabang eh. May elitismo. Woke ako, ikaw, ano ka bang? Sino ba binoto mo? Ay, bobo ka. Lagi may ganon, no? Woke versus bobo. Pag hindi niya binoto yung binoto mo, bobotante siya. I think we need to be careful kasi anong nangyayari, wala tayong conversation na nagagawa with the other person. Ang nangyayari tuloy sa social media, pag titingnan niyo yung patterns, woke people, quote-unquote, follow each other. Yung mga, again, for the sake of argument lang, yung mga supporters ni President Duterte, they support each other, no? They follow each other. They don't follow each other on Twitter. Kung meron man, konti lang yun. Kumpara doon talaga sa, sa tinatawag na social network analysis, makikita mo, umiikot yung buhay nila sa sarili nilang mundo. Kaya tuloy walang proper conversation. Napapalalim ba ng Twitter, ng social media, yung ating demokrasya? Hindi. Kasi napapaingay niya, pero hindi niya napapalalim. Girl Scouts, yun yung entry point natin. Itong pag-uusap na ito, this is our way of deepening our conversations. Kaya nga, sabi ng isang sikat na philosopher na ang pangalan ay Jayeel Padilla, isang artista, kilala niyo siya. Sabi niya, bakit ka hindi aktibo sa si social media, Jayeel Padilla? Sabi ng tinanong siya ng ABS-CBN News. Ang sagot niya, maraming tao na naninirahan na realidad nila ay social media. And actually, first time ko marinig si Jayeel Padilla na magkaroon ng isang napakalalim na statement. And in fact, he makes sense. It is a sociological fact. Pag umiikot yung buhay mo sa social media, akala mo lahat ay kapaniniwala mo. And it gives you that impression that everybody thinks like you, everybody believes like you, and if they don't believe like you accuse them of stupidity. They're not wise, they're not intelligent. And anong nangyayari? The emotions get riled up, and you end up just fighting one another. So, gaya na sinabi ni Athena Marie Gonzalez, yes po, endless echo chambers. Thank you so much for sharing that, Athena. Sabi ni Kyla, it is therefore important to still follow people with a different perspective and not shame them. Yes, amen, Kyla. Huwag nating ipahiya, huwag nating i-call out or i-cancel. Although minsan galit na talaga tayo, no? Pero engage them. Pag trolls, ibang usapan na yon kasi bayad ang trolls eh. Mamaya, if you want, bakyusan, pag-usapan din natin yung trolling industry, no? Kasi bayad talaga yon, no? Isa yun sa mga matinding kalaban natin, yun yung mga purveyors ng fake news. Basahin ko lang yung comment ni Miss Maricar Joy Magtibay Paner. Vote wisely, heart. Hindi yung magpapadala lang ng business like sikat ang madaming pera. Piliin yung totoong lingkod bayan na may kayang mahalin ng nasasakupan, marunong makinig sa hinaing ng mga mamamayan, yung hindi nagbibingi-bingi at nagbubulag-bulagan at hindi makasarili dapat. Okay. Galing. Katniel lang ang sakalam. Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you so much, Veng. Okay. Conclusion, para meron tayong time for open forum. Ano po yung gusto kong ibahagi sa inyo? Dito tayo sa right side ng aking presentation, fragmented youth. Girl Scouts, the reality is this. Hindi tayo united, ang mga kabataan. We need to recognize that we are fragmented. If we wish to harness the potential of the youth in shaping contemporary politics. Dr. Cornelio, anong ibig sabihin ng fragmented? Anong ibig sabihin ng pagkakawatak-watak? Meron akong 3 points. Babaon ko sa inyo. Number 1, there is no one youth vote. Hindi totoo na may youth vote. Nahiwalay dun sa boto ng mga matatanda or ng mga tito, kuya, ate. There is no one youth vote. Hindi ito counter vote, hindi ito countercultural. Actually, personally, sana nga ganun eh. Kasi sa US makikita natin yung mga kabataan, dahil mas educated sila, mas binote nila yung mga kandidato na pumapanig sa pagtigil sa gera, pagpapasok sa mga refugees or mga immigrants, pagpasa ng pag-recognize sa gender equality, mas bata, no? The younger people are more progressive. Sa Pilipinas, hindi ganun ang pattern eh. So walang one youth vote. Number two, being woke is a double-edged sword. Alam ko na marami sa atin sasabihin natin, woke tayo, no? Pero actually, gusto ko ring iparating po sa inyo na this is a double-edged sword. Socially conscious, yes. Politically conscious, yes. Aware of injustices, yes. But elitist. So, wala tayong conversations. Right? Yabang ang medala natin. So, akala natin, lahat naniniwala katulad natin, but in reality, it's not. It's not the reality, echo chambers. And finally, gusto kong itanong sa ating lahat, pag sinabi natin kabataang Pilipino, sino ba talaga ang tinutukoy natin? To whom are we referring when we actually say Filipino youth? Sino ba? Remember, 50% of our population fall below the age of 39 years old. 40 and below, 39 and below. 50%. We're a young population. Pero isipin natin, yung iba dyan nasa Batanes, yung iba sa dyan nasa Bangsamoro, yung iba dyan nasa Visayas, yung iba dyan nasa Maynila. Hindi porke na marami tayo mga kabataan dito sa Maynila na nakakapag-aral, ayun na yung realidad ng mga kabataan sa Ilocos, sa Guimaras, sa Basco, or sa Marawi. Hindi. Not everybody gets educated the same way as we do. Not everybody belongs to the same class. Not everybody finds exactly the same employment. There are a lot of out-of-school youth. And regionalism. Depende sa area mo. Kung galing ka sa Bangsamoro, most likely you are less educated, you are out of employment, and you are not doing anything. And you are very, very poor. Bangsamoro po ang pinakamahirap na region dito. So ano yung magiging way forward natin? This is where I will end, ladies and gentlemen. Ayan, kung interested po kayo dito sa konsepto ng fragmentation sa kabataan, babanggitin ko lang itong libro na aking pinublish, no, ng UST Press last year, University of Santo Tomas Publishing House. It's a book about rethinking Filipino millennials. Yung mga shinare ko ngayon, ang iba doon ay matatagpuan sa librong ito. Some of you might be very interested in it. Some of you might in fact have heard or read it even. The introduction is downloadable from my website. I'll share with you the link shortly. Paano tayo magtatapos? Gusto kong gamitin sa pagtatapos yung quote galing kay Athena Marie Gonzalez. Ang ganda ng quote ni Athena, oh. Without healthy conversations, sabi niya sa Facebook Live, nagkakaroon ng polarization and we are fed up by only one side of the issue. So, isang side lang daw ang naririnig natin. Janina Vela once said, emotions get your head, but facts keep people listening. So, gusto ni Athena na magkaroon tayo ng conversations. Athena, I agree with you. This is where I will end. Conversations. I know na kasama natin ngayon ay also the adults dito sa Girl Scouts. May konsepto po tayong tinatawag na intergenerational justice. Malalim po ito pero simple lang. Ipapaliwanag ko in a simple manner. Ano po yung intergenerational justice? Ibig sabihin po ng intergenerational justice, yung mga kabataan, may katungkulan tayo para sa mga matatanda. Yung mga matatanda, may katungkulan po kayo para sa aming mga nakababata. Tayong mga mas bata ngayon, may katungkulan tayo para sa susunod pang henerasyon. Hindi pa sila pinapanganak ngayon, pero yung mga desisyon at mga gawain natin ngayon, may impact ito sa buhay nila 20 years from now. Kapag hindi tayo aware sa intergenerational justice, ang iniisip lang natin ay sarili nating panahon at hindi yung panahon na darating pa, nagiging selfish tayo. Sisirain natin ang kalikasan, sasamantalahin natin ang corruption, sasamantalahin natin ang yaman na meron tayo, pero paano yung susunod na henerasyon? I think this is how we should talk about the elections. Alam ko na we are relying on young people to save us. But adults in the house, we also have a responsibility to educate one another sa henerasyon natin. Hindi natin pwedeng iasa lamang sa kabataan kahit pa sinabi ni Jose Rizal na sila ang pag-asa ng kabataan. Bakit? Marami po sa problema ng kabataan ngayon, tayo ang nagbigay dulot. We also have a responsibility, therefore, to make sure that young people today see a much better world tomorrow, next month, next year, and in the years to come. Maraming salamat po sa inyong panahon. I pray and I hope na ito ay nagbigay inspiration sa inyo sa hapon na ito. I am really willing now and ready to just have a conversation with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Cornelio. Indeed, the youth will save us. Ngunit, hindi sapat na woke lang. We should encourage conversations. We should encourage intergenerational connections. And now, our audience, of course, learned a lot from you, Dr. Cornelio. For your questions, may we request our audience to write them in the comment section below, as we will now open the floor for a short question and answer, which Ms. Donna Maylina, Communications Committee member, will facilitate. Please follow this format. For a short question and answer, which Ms. Donna Maylina, Communications Committee member, will facilitate.
Hi, Dr. Cornelio.
Hi, Mandona. Hello po.
Ibang klase yung merong chat box, merong phone dito. And of course, we have some pre-questions that were sent earlier on. So thank you very much for the Girl Scouts who sent their questions. And thank you, Dr. Cornelio, for that very enlightening talk. Okay, I'm going to start with the first question, which was actually asked by several people here. But due to time constraints, mga similar questions siya. You ended with Athena Marie Gonzalez's quote, but she actually asked a question earlier on. So she's from Batangas. She asked, how can we actually extract or point out and choose deserving candidates? How can we say that a candidate is a true leader and advocate of positive change? So, Dr. Cornelio, I'm gonna chunk them all para ma-shout out ko rin that so many people asked similar questions. Like, similar to this question from Trisha Lynn. What is your ideal leader that can lead our country? From Hyacinth Alayon. How do we know if that person deserves a position in the government and leading the people? So basically, the first question is, paano pumili? Ano ba talaga ang batayan? At dahil sa konstitusyon, merong basic criteria sa pagpili ng ating pinuno.
Salamat, Ma'am Donna. Hello, salamat Athena, Trisha, at sa lahat ng mga nagtanong about ano ba magiging batayan natin. I'll give you just one or 2 points. I leave it up to you really to reflect on this. Number one, tumatakbo itong tawang ito, sabi niya, ililigtas daw niya tayo, aayusin daw niya yung sistema ng ating bayan. Ang tanong, napatunayan mo po ba yan? We should be willing and brave, even if it's so threatening to ask these questions. Sir, salamat po na gusto niyo pong tugunan yung kahirapan sa Pilipinas. Paano niyo po ginawa yan? Just to drive home the point. Ngayon, usong-uso na naman yung commercial ng mga politicians na kasama nila yung mga mahihirap. No? I'm sure na recognize niyo yung mga commercials na yan. Pag tinignan natin yung background nila, Girl Scouts, sila yung mga taong nagpa-evict ng mga urban poor. Sila yung mga taong nagpa-evict ng mga rural poor para i-convert yung lugar na yon magiging subdivision. Records show that. So, without naming names, you see the point? Actions speak louder than words. And I challenge you, young people, Girl Scouts, don't be afraid to ask tough questions to people who promise us the moon and the stars. Have they been to the moon? Have they been to the stars? So don't promise me the moon and the stars if you haven't been there. That's one. Number 2, integrity. Alam niyo po, bumagsak ang Pilipinas sa Transparency International, sa tinatawag na Corruption Perception Index. Nakakalungkot ito kasi nag-i-improve na tayo in the previous decade. I think pumasok na tayo sa top 100. Ngayon, nasa 100 plus na ulit tayo. Nag-slide down na naman tayo. Bakit? It's because our government, our people, our nation is run by a system that is absolutely corrupt. Kapag may record of corruption ng isang kandidato at napatunayan na at nakasuhan na at kita natin, huwag na nating iboto. No? But if you look at, I challenge you, just look at our current list of officials right now. Sino sa kanila yung hindi talaga corrupt? Na makikita tayo na actually, baka madi-disappoint tayo. Therefore, two things lang sa akin. May record ka ba to back up your claim that you will save us? And number two, do you have the integrity? Hindi pwedeng integrity lang. Ay, boboto ko siya kasi mabait siya. Hindi naman pwedeng record lang. Kasi kung magaling nga siya pero corrupt naman, hindi na nakawin din niya yung pera natin. Right? We need to have both integrity and competence. Ask them questions. Pag nagpagawa sila ng mga commercial na sumasayaw lang sila, sabihin nyo, thank you for your commercial, I don't like it, this is my question. Send them, tweet them, email them, barrage them. It's for the longest time, they have been imposing on us their narratives that they will save us. For a change, Girl Scouts, let's change the narratives. Let's shape the conversation. Not your topic, my topic. Kabataan ako ang sasalo ng mga problemang iiwan mo kapag nawala na kayo. I better ask you tough questions right now. I am very passionate when it comes to these things, but anyway, let's do this. Ma'am Donna, salamat.
Yes, Dr. Cornelio. So the answer is kailangan may integrity at may track record.
Yes.
Hindi siya, kailangan both ha? Tama?
Both. Hindi pwedeng mabait lang.
Hindi siya either or, right?
Not either or. Hindi pwedeng nagpe-pray lang, no? For example.
Yes. Okay, next question from Maricar Escriba from San Pablo City Girl Scouts. There are still some young people and also adults who do not want to register as a voter because they believe that nothing will change even if they vote. Can you give some tips on how we can encourage them to register as a voter?
Parurusahan po sila ni God kapag hindi sila nagpa-register. Pwede bang ganon? Naiintindihan ko yan, Ma'am Donna. Sino siya nagtanong na? What's her name?
Si Maricar.
Maricar, naiintindihan ko yung mga tito-tita at mga kilala mo na ayaw bumoto or ayaw magpa-register kasi wala namang mangyayari. Naiintindihan ko yan. Pwede mo pa rin namang sabihin sa kanila yung mga statistics na binitawan ko kanina. Actually, kung titingnan mo lang yung sarili mo, isa ka nga lang. Pero kung titingnan mo yung henerasyon mo, kanyari 80 to 29, gaya na pinakita ko sa inyo kanina, actually we constitute 20 million of the entire voting population. That's 1/3 of the registered 60 million. So kung lahat tayo ay nandun, boboto, then our votes would make a difference. Nga lang, kung hindi pa rin siya ma-convince, I believe that you've done your part. Focus on other people. No, kasi meron dyan iba mas mako-convert pa. We cannot convert everyone. We cannot please everyone. You've tried your part. Saka patawarin mo na rin ang sarili mo. No? You don't have to punish yourself for not being able to change people. Right?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cornelio. I have this is my question po. Those are the two major questions. As a sociologist, yung democratic system or process of elections, is this the most relevant for our society? Because other people, let's say, wala silang election or paano sila pumipili ng leader. Ako po naman ay registered voter and voter since I was 18. So perfect attendance po ako sa election, and yet parang feeling ko parang kulang pa rin yata. That's why I'm here, of course, with the Girl Scouts doing this. So what are other electoral? Yes. So basically, my question is, kasi dito tayo, diba? This is a democracy, so we're choosing, it's a multi-party system, at yan ngayon yung rules natin. Pero sa inyo pong pag-aaral, yan po ba yung pinaka-effective? Hindi ko masasabing epektibo, pero yung mga progresibo pong bansa, ano ang batayan nila kung paano sila pumipili ng pinuno?
Wow. Okay. Ang galing ng tanong, Ma'am Donna. Do we have one semester to discuss this? Political Theory 101?
Mag-enroll po ako.
Mag-enroll kayo! One semester, may midterms ako finals. Great question. It's a chicken and egg question, Ma'am Donna. Bakit? Kasi there are systems that encourage intelligent choices. So halimbawa, sa France, merong mga boboto ka muna, maraming mga kandidato, tapos eventually ang pipiliin lang yung top 2, tapos magkakaroon ulit ng botohan. So, hasang-hasa, no? Makikita natin sa US, ang sistema naman nila dahil meron silang malalakas na parties ay within the Democratic Party and then the Republican Party, magkakaroon sila ng mga primaries nila. Marami silang kandidato at hahasang-hasa din kung sino yung pinaka-magiging kandidato nila. Kaya by the time na meron ng presidential candidates, piling-pili na yon, no? Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, for example. No? At matagal na proseso yon, at least 1 year na process yung pinagdadaanan nila to get to that point. Dito sa Pilipinas, wala tayong ganong sistema. Bakit? Kasi nga multi-party system tayo. Tapos pangalawa, Ma'am Donna, ang problema natin dito, our parties are not very strong. In fact, they're very, very weak. Halimbawa, Liberal Party ka noong 2010, nung nanalo si President Aquino. Nung nanalo naman si President Duterte noong 2016, ilan sa mga Liberal Party, 80% of the members of Liberal Party jumped ship at lumipat sa partido ni President Duterte. Ibig sabihin, wala kang loyalty sa partido. Di ba sa Girl Scouts of the Philippines, merong oath of allegiance? Meron tayong I'm a Girl Scout is thrifty, a Girl Scout is, di ba ganon? May ganon, right? And yun yung konsepto ng partido. You subscribe to the beliefs and the convictions and the policies of that party. Wala tayong ganon. Ngayon, you subscribe to the person. Yun yung problema sa ating electoral system, Ma'am Donna. Kaya sa mga kaibigan ko sa political science, ang kanilang mga advocacies na ngayon ay patatagin yung mga political parties. No, pwede ka kasi gumawa ng mga batas or ng mga safeguards to make sure that, for example, a candidate before she or he runs is a member of a particular party for the last 6 years. Pwede kang gumawa ng mga ganun eh. Pero ipapasabayan ng mga congressman? Hindi. Bakit? Kasi they will be shooting themselves in the foot. No? Kumbaga, ikukulong nila yung sarili nila the moment that they pass it. So it becomes a chicken and egg. So ngayon, anong ginagawa natin? Nagvo-voter education na lang tayo. So gusto natin na bumoto yung mga tao ng tama. Pero in reality, Ma'am Donna, is that yung choices natin napakalimitado. To drive home the point, 70% of our Congress, our representatives, ay galing sa mga dynasties. Political dynasties, mga apelidong paulit-ulit lang. No? Bihira yung mga katulad namin dito sa Pasig na Soto, no? Na Vico Soto. Right? Pero pag tinignan mo yung ibang mga areas, puro political dynasties, mayor, vice mayor, congressman, congresswoman, lahat sila magkakamag-anak. And Ma'am Donna, bakit ganon? Kasi it's one political dynasty running against another political dynasty. So sino yung mananalo? Political dynasty. At according to research, mataas ang probabilidad na kapag pinaghaharian ka ng isang political dynasty, mataas ang poverty incidence sa iyong lugar. See? Makikita natin yun. Unfortunately, wala namang choice yung mga tao. Kaya siguro sa mga darating na panahon, baka pwede natin magiging pagtutuunan ng pansin, hindi na voter education, kundi political reform, electoral reform. Yan.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cornelio. At mag-e-enroll po ako pag open po yung classes na yon online kasama po sa political reform. Paki-shout out lang sa amin para ang Girl Scouts of the Philippines also. I guess this is going to be a continuing voter education for the public and also for the Girl Scouts of the Philippines. Yes, so it starts with that, right? Okay, Amen. More questions here. Gaya ng sinabi ninyo daw kanina, so si Jay Delgado, what do you think should be our parameters so we could better distinguish whether politicians' plans are still realistic, achievable, or they are already reaching for the moon and stars? Pero bakit binoto pa rin yung mga nag-reach for the moon and stars? sociological ba or psychological yung answers for that?
Yeah. Gusto niyo, sagutin ko muna yun, Ma'am Donna. Ang ganda ng tanong na to. Bakit nananalo pa rin yung mga sumasayaw lang? No? Yun yung gusto mo itanong, Ma'am Donna, no? Bakit nananalo pa rin yung mga sumasayaw lang, no? Pag tinanong natin, according to surveys, ano yung hinahanap ng mga ordinaryong Pilipino sa kanilang mga leaders? Na pagkakatiwalaan, may pagkalinga sa mahirap, may integridad. May integridad na pagkakatiwalaan, merong pagkalinga sa mahihirap. Wala doon yung may record, wala doon yung may track record, wala doon yung nag-prepare ba siya ng public administration, wala yun eh. It's all about perception. So, celebrities are in a much, much stronger position, obviously. Kasi, di ba, yung nasa characterizations nila yun, di ba, sa kung paano sila pinapakita sa television or sa media. Manufactured talaga lahat yon. Ang challenge sa atin ay, can we pass through that, no? The smoke screen. Madali kasing ipakita na mabait akong tao, pero kung uungkatin ko na yung salin mo po, sir, di ba? Halimbawa, no? Doon naman kakatalo. Kaso matrabaho yun. And dito ko hinihikayat yung mga kasama natin sa journalistic industry. No? Si Jen sa Probe team, Probe is really unique kasi talagang inuungkat nag-archives talaga. Alam ko yung ginagawa nila sa Probe. Nagpa-fact check, etc. Pero hindi kasi lahat ng media sa media industry ay ganon. Sorry, Donna. Ako lang ba yung nakakanilig doon?
Oo, ano yun? Hindi ko siya narinig.
Okay. Okay, Sarah. Parang
baka low-bat na yung mic mo. I can... Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Wait. Medyo mahina. Mahina na yan. But that's a little bit mahina.
Alright. Let's do this one. Sorry. So
okay. This is a question from Gianna, and this is related to what you said earlier about, of course, perception, etc. So this is where social media comes in. Many people don't trust what's reported by the media, candidates, because they think MSM is bayaran. How do we tell people that media is still obliged to report facts, or at the same time, there are our laws are not updated yet, or I'm not very sure on social media, this new playing field as to anybody and everybody can basically say anything and everything they want. So how would they level the playing field in that aspect?
That's true. Okay. Dito papasok yung yung responsibility natin sa media literacy, no? And this is another area that we need to help our young people with. Sa totoo lang po, according to research, convincing talaga yung networks of disinformation, pagpapalaganap ng fake news. Halimbawa, nung panahon ni President Marcos, marami siyang ginawang mga ganito. Pero pag binasa mo yung history books, yung history records, hindi nagmamatch. Pero ano yung mas madaling paniwalaan? Ito nasa social media. Bakit? Kasi meme graphics, picture, quote, counting numbers, and then yun na yun. Right? This is hinihikayat ko yung mga kabataan ngayon na go beyond that. No? It's not easy to fact check, but to be honest, there are no shortcuts. I want to highlight this. In making our democracy work, there are no shortcuts. Pansinin niyo yung ginagawa ng mga fake news, ng mga trolls, sila shortcut. They tell us easy narratives in one picture. Shortcut. Kung ganun na pala kadali, di sana ganun na lang yung curriculum natin sa school, hindi ba? Ganun na lang sana yung araling panlimpunan natin. Pero we know that it's not easy. Kailangan nating basahin at pag-aral. So hinihikayat ko kayo na every time that you encounter something that is too good to be true, fact check. Fact check. At kung hindi nyo kayang i-fact check, ano ba naman yung lalapit kayo sa mga ibang experts? It could be your teachers or it could be me. You know, I mean, kaya ako active sa social media. I have helped, guided some students in that area.
Okay. And we have another question from our National Communications Committee, Dr. Christine Aranilla. Is survey influential in choices in that voters make? Kasi ang daming lumalabas ngayon ng mga surveys.
Yes.
So how does that affect voter choices?
The direct answer, the quick answer, Dr. Aranilla, is no. No, they don't. They don't. Kasi kung ganyan, Dr. Aranilla, yung alam ko na, parang natatakot na parang every time Pulse Asia or SWS would release something, conditioning, mind conditioning yan. No? So, iboboto na lang ng mga Pilipino yung mananalo na yung kanilang manok at hindi na nila iboboto yung mahina. Actually, not true. Kasi kung babalikan natin yung very recent history, noong 2014, 2015, sino ang number 1 sa mga surveys? Binay. 2015, pumalo si Grace Poe, nag-number 1 siya. And then come December 2015, nag-express ng pagtakbo si President Duterte, siya na ang nag-number 1 all the way na hanggang May 2016. In other words, kahit sabihin ng survey na nag-number 1 ng isang si President Binay, hindi na nangangahulugan na siya yung mananalo by 2016. Kasi doon papasok yung campaign, doon papasok yung mga live TV debates, doon papasok yung mga coverage ng journalists, doon papasok yung voter education. So surveys are there only to help us understand ano yung realidad ngayon. Ginagamit din yan ng mga candidates to understand where they are right now. But do they shape, do they influence political choices later on? Some studies say na it's not like that. Thank you for that very important question, Dr. Aranilla. Thank you.
Okay, we have another question here. Do you think the pandemic response of the leaders will shape how voters will vote in the 2022 elections?
One more time, Donna, one more time.
Do you think the pandemic response, how leaders, incumbents, will affect how voters will choose their leaders? How will it affect choosing their leaders in terms of pandemic response, vaccination response right now with our current problems?
I wish I wish that COVID would shape our political choices next year. Sa tingin ko, sa ibang bansa kasi ganun eh. Naging ganun talaga. Kay Joe Biden, for example, no? I mean, this is not to reveal my political colors, pero kay Joe Biden kasi ang linaw-linaw, no, laser focus yung kanyang yung kanyang COVID ang problema, no? Let's get ourselves out of COVID and our economy will improve. Nagigets yun ng Americans eh. Dito sa Pilipinas, iba-iba yung issues eh. Employment, livelihood, wages, inflation. Halimbawa, nag-survey yung Pulse Asia. Ano yung mga gusto nyong marinig about from President Duterte sa kanyang SONA? This was just last Monday, hindi ba? Alam nyo yung sinagot ng mga Filipinos, majority ng top 3 concerns ng mga request ng mga Filipinos ay, na gusto nilang marinig ay hindi COVID. Economy, inflation, wages, livelihood, employment. Number 4 lang, yung vaccination. No, kumbaga, para sa ordinaryo Pilipino, okay, may vaccine nga ako ngayon, pero bukas ba may trabaho ako? No? So, this really is a challenge to us and to our candidates. Now, if you're going to run, please present to us solid facts, no, about and realistic, no, hindi yung moon and the stars kanina tanong, no. How do we get ourselves out of this condition? According to some projections ng mga economists, hindi tayo makakabawi until December 2022. Ang Vietnam, Thailand, pumapalo na, pero tayo December 2022 pa tayo makakabawi sa pre-COVID levels natin. Unfortunately, that was before Delta. Ngayon, bumasok na yung Delta, so it may delay us a little bit more. Ako, nag-aalala nga ako kasi ang pinaka-concern ko, Ma'am Donna, yung kalidad ng edukasyon ng mga kabataan. Nag-aalala po talaga ako, Doc Yuson, honestly, no, sa reality ng mga online learning. Not all teachers are designed to teach well online. And not all students can learn online. Feeling ko na short-change natin ng mga kabataan. Doon meron na talagang klarong intergenerational injustice. Haya, hindi ako maka-message for some reason sa keyboard ko, but the answer is yes. May tanong si
so
Haya
Dr.
kasi.
Cornelio, I'll read out some of the comments and shout outs also from our Facebook attendees.
Sige po.
Yes, tama sir, dynasty po ang labanan from we're being heard and seen all over from Sultan Kadarat Council. Shout out to Barotas Chalin. And Jade said, yes, political parties do not have clear ideologies. Example, we cannot distinguish which ones are liberals and which ones are conservatives.
Yes.
And good afternoon po, watching from Malanday Elementary School, STO Marikina City, Merla Flores, Siapian. Okay. So yung sinabi rin ni top fan natin, si Athena, most but not all, paulit-ulit na apelido. So how do we break that? Elections are an expensive endeavor. So if you're actually challenging, you're really going against the stream. For those outliers who've done that, what have been a successful model aside from being a very famous, let's say, actor? Because again, as part of what you said earlier, right? Lalong-lalo na, I guess, hindi lang Pilipino yan, but it's a human trait that we really want somebody who's approachable and who really shows that they care, right?
Yeah.
How do new players, how can they come in the election?
Yeah. Well, my quick answer to that, Ma'am Donna, I feel, is that si Commissioner Guanzon can really answer that better than I can. Kasi papasok siya sa electoral reform. Pero, papasok siya sa electoral reform. How do we encourage new players, no? Kumbaga. Pero, hindi nangangahulugan na wala na tayo magagawa, no? Girl Scouts. Dito papasok yung tinatawag na community organizing, grassroots-based. Tandaan natin na sa nakaraang elections ng 2019, nagiba ang ibang mga dynasties. Case in point, dito sa Pasig, nagiba ang dynasty. At nakita na yung mga mas bata, pwede pala silang lumaban and they can do much, much better. Records show na si Vico Soto, for example, has been doing a great job. Sa San Juan, I think nag 100% na sila ngayon as we speak sa senior citizens vaccination. Sa Manila, to a great extent also. We see this also sa Iloilo. Di ba, makikita natin na it's possible to challenge dynasties. And it takes a long while kasi it's about building reputation, it's about forming organizations and movements. Isa yon, community organizing, no? Hindi ko na pwedeng mapag-usapan yung electoral reform kasi baka si Commissioner na ang makasagot nun. Yung isa pa is using every space, social media, traditional media, and our schools to help our young people ask tougher questions. Does it make sense? No? To ask tough questions. To ask tough questions na we should ask about track record, we should ask about integrity, we should ask about these things. Kasi nangyayari yung mga datos na yun, napupunta lang yan sa mga experts eh. No, kunyari, na-invite ako sa isang CNN, for example, or sa documentary ng Probe. No, experts lang yun at hindi naman lahat nakakapanood. Pero kung maititrain natin po ang mga kabataan or Girl Scouts to really ask tough questions, hindi ba mas mapapalalim natin yung democratic spaces natin? Sometimes I wonder if we're really helping our kids just by telling them, obey first before you complain. No? Or, bakit kita susundin kasi magulang mo ako? Those are ideas that tell our kids it's better to shut up than to ask questions. Maybe it's also with the way how we teach them. Ayun.
Okay, so madami pang mga tanong at mga comments.
Ang galing nga ang galing.
To the Girl Scouts with your very, very intelligent comments. So babasahin ko lang din dito. Wait, si chat box po. Ito. From Eileen Hernandez, maganda sa panahon ngayon lahat ng boses na papakinggan. Hindi katulad ng mga nakaraan kung sino palagi nakikita sa TV, yan ang kadalasan ng mananalo sa eleksyon. Wag palin lang. And from Bombing Po, I just hope our young girls will be discerning enough when approached by the SKs in their areas and instead by the influencers. Go Girl Scouts, go. And this is a practical question asked earlier. Pag nag-register ba daw sa SK, kailangan pa rin bang mag-register dito sa national elections?
Oh, the answer is yes. Iba yun eh. Iba yung SK, iba yung national elections. No? Maybe Commissioner can also answer that later on.
Yes. So, madami pa tayong pa-shoutout. Wait, hold on. Basahin lang muna natin ang shoutout na napakadami dito. And
ang active!
Yes, paki-plug lang din po ang inyong Twitter again and handle. And
wow.
Girl Scouts, ang ating official hashtag ay hashtag Pilipinas. Nakikinig ka ba? Because after this will be an ongoing conversation. So, sir, pwede ka naman namin kulit-kulitin, right? On Twitter, on the social media space so that we can really extend this conversation.
Yes, ako po ay nasa @Jayeel_Cornelio. Tapos, teka, ilagay ko na rin din sa sa ating sa Facebook natin. Hello
okay.
po. Ayan, sige, lalagay ko na rin sa Facebook comments.
And here, the Girl Scouts are, gaya ng sinabi kanina, right? We are founded by our founders who really fought for our right to be able to vote here. So, since this is a more malalim conversation, right? Gaya ng sinabi ninyo, yung aklat na available, kailangan magbasa, mag-observe, makilahok, at makipag-usap pa sa ibang mga tao. Ano pa yung kanina na-mention ninyo, yung community grassroots na pwedeng gawin? So, isa ang Girl Scouts sa napakalaking organisasyon. So, aside from this, what else can we actually do for ourselves and for the rest of everybody that with your experience na pwede pa naming ma-amplify? And I'm sure the rest of the Girl Scouts here, you can actually shout out the practical things and suggestions that we Girl Scouts can actually do.
Wow. Okay, little by little, naniniwala ako talaga sa small scale. No, the quality of our democracy lies in the strength of our small groups. No, let me say that again. The quality of our national democracy lies in the strength of our small groups. So, sa pamilya ba natin, nakakapag-usap tayo ng malaya, no? So if you are parents, and I see that we have some adults here, I hope na at the dining table we can have proper and deep conversations about candidates and about the state of our society and about our future. Dining table pa lang yun, in our small groups, no, in our neighborhoods, Girl Scouts, it can go a long way na sa mga kaibigan natin, we talk about these things. Alam ko na marami sa atin na magsasabi, politics yan, ayaw kong pag-usapan yan kasi mag-aaway lang tayo. No, but actually, we can help them. We can help, kung magiging patient lang din tayo, we can help them. Ako, I have to say this is a very personal thing. No? I mean, moving beyond my sociological, getting out of my sociological hat now, very personally, sa pamilya ko, kami ay iba-ibang political colors. Ako yung talagang dito sa kaliwa, yung kapatid ko ay nandun sa, hindi ko na alam kung nasaan na siya. Pero pag nag-uusap kami, talagang it's so emotional and it can be so heated. But I am telling myself, Jayeel, be patient kasi this is what democracy is. Hindi tayo mag-agree all the time. Therefore, ulitin ko yung point ko kanina, the quality and the depth of our national democracy all boils down to the quality of our conversations in our small configurations, your family, your friendships, your churches, your communities.
Okay, so on that note, Dr. Cornelio, we will continue the conversation. So as you said earlier, it's in the quality of our conversations in small groups, correct? So
yes.
It starts with a dining table, of course, with right now, mag-ECQ na po. So within our families, we will have all the time to talk about this. in obviously a diplomatic manner if you have very different political colors in your family. So thank you, Dr. Cornelio. You'll be staying on for the rest of the forum. So back to you, Sir Lovey. And mag-enroll po ako.
Sige, i-announce natin yan.
Okay, thank you.
Again, thank you, Dr. Cornelio, for the time to answer our audience's questions. Also, thank you to our audience for your active participation. Before we proceed to our next talk, nandyan pa kaya ang ating mga audience? Can you tell us how you felt about our first resource person and his talk? I-click nyo na ang like, heart, or wow reaction button. Ayan! Ang raming positive reactions. Kaya naman, let's proceed to the second part of our program. May I call Ms. Elena V. Romero, Communications Committee member, to introduce our next resource person.
Good afternoon, fellow Girl Scouts. I'm going to introduce to you somebody who is very accomplished, but I will not, give you a list of all of these. No, I just want to highlight a few of them. Our resource person was a former mayor of Cadiz City in Negros Occidental. I think she was one of those mayors of her time, no? Youngest mayors of her time. She was also a former commissioner of the Commission on Audit of the country. She was also, before she assumed her present position, she was officer in charge of the Institute for the Administration of Justice at the UP Law Center. Our resource person has also written so many books, and I would like to highlight, especially for us Girl Scouts, that she is actually a champion of women's rights. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our distinguished resource person now, currently the Senior Commissioner of the Commission on Elections, Commissioner Rowena Amelia Guanzon.
Thank you. Thank you, sis, Jing, and good afternoon to our fellow Girl Scouts. And my apologies for a little delay. As you know, it's work from home day every day, and the Girl Scouts of the Philippines, I think, is underestimated in terms of political action, because it was not organized for political action. Even when I'm sure our original, generation of Girl Scouts were for women's rights and the women's right to vote, educating girls to exercise their political rights was not in the agenda of the Girl Scouts. I think it's never too late to add it to the Girl Scouts curriculum or training modules, and they call it now citizenship, because educating girls and young women on their political rights opens the door to many doors of leadership in the future. We can prepare our girls for a good quality education if we work with the Department of Education. We can prepare our girls for preparedness for climate change if we raise their awareness about the dangers of climate change, which is not in their education curriculum. We can prepare them for many other things, but we cannot prepare them truthfully for their future with a government that may be bad for them if we do not raise their awareness about their political and social rights. That's why exercising the right to vote in democracies is very important for women and girls. Because after all, it is the women and girls who bear the heavier burden of raising families, sending children to school, and finding jobs. Why? Because in all these areas, women have a disadvantage. For example, girls in many families suffer discrimination in their own family because their parents prefer that their brothers go to school first or take higher degrees if the resources of the family are not enough. So we are advocating for political rights because that is the source of power. Politics is a source of power. Government is a source of power. That's why it's very important that we teach the girls, our girls, on the importance of voting for the right candidates. But first, they have to register. The nationwide activity organization of the Girl Scouts is a perfect fit for having pushing for a program for voter registration, because the Girl Scouts is present in all provinces and all cities and municipalities. As of today, we have new registrants that number around 5.45 million, and more than a majority of them are women. In the last 3 elections, more women registered to vote, and more women actually voted than men. So I cannot overemphasize the importance of voting for women and girls in our country. And yet, when governments produce laws and policies, women are still at a disadvantage. So it is not just encouraging our young girls and women to register and vote. It is equally important that we raise their consciousness on what quality of leaders we should be voting for. I think in this regard, the Girl Scouts of the Philippines has not only the network, but also all the connections and the machinery that it can use to educate our young women and girls on their power to vote. So my friends, thank you for inviting me to send this message. I hope that I can be active someday in some of your projects also. Thank you very much, and magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Commissioner Guanzon. Are we proceeding straight? We have a question and answer portion.
Please go ahead while I'm still free. There should be another phone call coming in, but please go ahead with your questions.
Yes, so we're going to ask the pre-asked questions. Regarding the ECQ and GCQ, are there additional health measures that women and girls can be doing during the start of registration and election? How is the COMELEC preparing for that? As now NCR will be having our ECQ again.
Well, we're the COMELEC is constrained by these IATF rules. But elsewhere in the country where there's no ECQ or GCQ, our registration continues. And in fact, we have barangay satellite registration for towns and barangays that have zero local transmission. I think what the Girl Scouts can help us with is going on the radio. You can go on the radio and encourage your friends, families, and all Girl Scouts to register and vote. I think you should use you can use social media a lot because that's how we reach people now. And the power of the Girl Scouts as a nationwide organization is going to be very helpful in encouraging girls and women to register and vote.
There's a question here by Dr. Amelia. She's asking, will the registration be extended? It's
no, we cannot. We cannot extend the deadline, which is still September 30. The reason is because we have to prepare the project of precincts. We have to assign voters lists to precincts. So we have to do that before December. So that takes around 2 months. So we cannot move the registration. So far, we have a good number, 5.45 million new registrants. What we're thinking of to increase this is to just automatically revalidate those names of voters who failed to vote in the last 2 consecutive elections. There's about 7 million of them, and around 700 have revalidated their registration. And so there's 6.3 million. By next week, we should be deciding in the Commission and Bank how to activate these 6.3 million voters. Do they have to individually go online and request to revalidate, or do we just make a resolution that says automatically they're all revalidated, and then we just reconfigure the computer program, and that would be like 6.3 million. So 5.4 plus 6.3 million, that's 11.7 million people. You can elect, the new voters can elect a senator with 11.7 million. That's how powerful it is.
And you mentioned earlier, Commissioner Guanzon, that the Girl Scout has a lot of power. So we're being watched right now on Zoom and also on Facebook Live and all over the world of the Girl Scouts.
You might want to count, how many Girl Scouts are of voting age. I mean, so you can estimate. So when you say we have the power, you have the data. We have girls of voting age who were Girl Scouts, say, or are still Girl Scouts in this number. And that's going to make people listen, right? Because I think compared to the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts are really underrated as an organization. I mean, for example, when we go to the movies, 1 peso goes to the Boy Scouts, but there's no 1 peso that goes to the Girl Scouts. I mean, how is that possible? How's that possible? Do you need a law to do that? Or do you just, I don't know, why don't you pass a law that gives a tax break for those people who donate to the Girl Scouts, for example? There are so many things that can be done by the Girl Scouts for girls and women. And that's why Congress is very important. Electing the right people to Congress is very important.
And Commissioner Guanzon, the elections will be happening here next year, and also globally there will be elections, and there are a lot of Girl Scouts all over the world. So how can they vote also? And my friend, Mr. Ed Castro, sends his regards to you as well.
Thank you. Yes. Well, we have overseas voters, as you know. I'm commissioner in charge, and again, in overseas voting, there are more women than men who actually voted. And political behavior is consistent. And that's why, people should start thinking about women as a political group, you see. But the problem is we don't have a women's vote. We don't say, oh, the women will vote for these senators because they are pro-divorce. We don't have that. We don't have a women's vote, unlike in Scandinavia, where they have a women's vote because they have a union. They have unions. The women there have unions because the women have jobs. In our country, the women do not have jobs. We're talking about poor women. And when women do get jobs, they get paid less than the men who do equal labor. Even abroad, the women still comprise a high percentage of overseas Filipino workers, but they do domestic helper jobs and other manual labor. So it's not just the number of women who must have jobs, but the quality of the jobs that they're going to get. That's equally an important issue. So you can imagine how much this pandemic has had a terrible impact on women and girls. Because let's say there are 4 million people who are unemployed. They don't tell us how many women are actually unemployed now. We should find out from NEDA or the DOLE. I mean, and then what's the impact of staying at home to girls psychologically, emotionally, to child abuse, to battering, to sexual abuse by male members and extended family members. There's just so many things going on. And when you picture them all together, what can solve all of this really is a government that cares, a government that will respond. Look at the other governments, I mean, why are their police services so excellent? Why is their healthcare excellent? Because they're rich countries? It's true. But I mean, you don't have to be a rich country to have a well performing government. And I think that countries that are poorer than the Philippines have shown that during this pandemic. So we have to pray for we have to pray that we get more vaccines, because if we don't get more vaccinated Filipinos, our economy is really not going to turn around. And that's the core issue now, aside from health, is the economy, jobs. How many women are out of jobs? How many girls are out of school? So those are the things we have to talk about aside from voting.
So Commissioner Guanzon, if the women can really have that women's vote.
Are there other questions? Or they write down the questions? Do they write the questions to you?
Yes, there are questions, and we're also live on FB, so there are questions coming along as we go along the way. And there are also some questions on the chat. So I'll
Can you read one? Can you read one?
Right now, this is from your friend Jingjing Romero. Where can we find the list of places where mobile registration booths are? And also, these are technical questions such as the website and other things where people can register.
Our iRehistro is ongoing. It's working. The iRehistro is really just an online, not registration as a voter, but you can get the form online. You can fill it up, then it gives you a quick code that you fill up, and then you save that code and you show the code to your election assistant. So it saves you the trouble of filling up 3 pages while you're there in COMELEC. And that's how iRehistro works. I think a lot of people are using that now, and you try it. iRehistro, small letter I, Registro.
Okay, so there's the iRehistro and there are also the mall registration. There are a couple of questions here from the Girl Scouts on how, if the pandemic still continues after in May 2022, how will COMELEC perform the elections?
We have tried it in Palawan. They had a plebiscite months ago. And despite the fact that not even 1/3 of the people there were vaccinated, and the weather was very bad, people came out. There were nearly 63% of the voters came out to vote no. So Palawan remains one province today, not three. And that's against all odds, that during a pandemic, the people there who organized for a no vote had to campaign using every other means possible to communicate with the voters, and that can still be done now. So COMELEC has shown that we can run an elections during a pandemic successfully, and now, especially that our people are already vaccinated, there will be less health hazards for our election officers. Last year, when the pandemic just struck, Taiwan had an election, Korea had a national election, so but of course their vaccination rate was much higher, but they were able to do it, and so can we. Of course, someday in the future, if we can vote by mail, like in the States, you are sent a ballot and then you mail it back or you drop it, like Korea does it. That would be really great for us in the future. The other development is the early voting bill, now in the hands of Senator Amy Marcos, that will give persons with disabilities and elderly persons the option to vote 1 week ahead of the election. So they can vote on May 2 if this law on early voting is passed.
Okay, Commissioner, I have more questions here from Jay Delgado. With a negative view some people have on politicians and politics in general, how could we best convince them they have the capacity to make their political changes, especially by registering and exercising their right to vote? So this was also an earlier conversation.
You have to look at the models, no? Look at Taiwan. Taiwan was a one-issue election. For the woman president was up for re-election. And of course, Taiwan's issue is very clear to them. Do you want to be under China or not? So they voted for a candidate that was against, instead of voting for a candidate who was for unification. So the issues have to be very clear in an election so that it will motivate people to vote. Look at the United States. Trump was running as a re-electionist. The Republicans had control of the Senate, but Trump lost. He was a very popular president. What did they do? Years before, they organized to register. In Georgia, women led the registration campaign 2 years before the election in the state of Georgia, which was a Republican-dominated voting state. But Trump lost in Georgia. In Palawan, the no vote won. So it is possible. I think people who say, no, they don't want to vote because it's the same thing. These are the people who can afford to eat. What class of people are these that say, oh, I don't want to vote because it's the same thing anyway, they're all crooks? These are the people who can speak English. I mean, these are not the people who are going hungry. So you think about it, is that the dominant idea? I don't think so. I think Filipinos want to vote. I think Filipinos want to vote. Because look at Palawan, in the middle of an impending storm, with no vaccination, people went out with their umbrellas. They braved the rain. They voted. I think Filipinos want to vote. And those who don't want to vote, it's your loss. That's all I have to say.
So, Commissioner, we asked this question earlier with Professor Cornelio, who also was part of our panel. What should be the criteria for our Girl Scouts in choosing our leaders?
What are the lessons that we learned today? I think the scholars should talk about not the standards per se, because, I don't want to be seen as very righteous. What are the lessons we have today? The lesson is we need people in government who are competent, 2, who are honest, and 3, who care. Those are the 3 standards for me. Because everybody can say, oh, I'm good for the people, I'm honest, I'm like that. But, corruption is still an issue. Now, more than so, even the president admits it, that corruption is still a problem in our country. I know. Indonesia was very corrupt. You have to look at models, so that you can see that there's hope for our country. Indonesia was number 1 corrupt in Asia. We were like number 6 at the time. And they said, as a people, we cannot progress. If we continue this, that our government's corrupt, we're going to go bankrupt. What they did is their president and their legislature created an anti-corruption commission headed by a very, very, very honest team who prosecuted government officials, and now it's off the top 5 most corrupt countries list. And that matters a lot if your government wants to borrow money from banks. If your corruption index is high, they're going to say, no way. No way. We're not going to lend you money, right? I mean, how are you going to pay us if your government officials are just going to pocket it, you see? So corruption does matter. It does matter. It does matter for the country's ability or capacity to get a loan so that our people can have more jobs, our people can have more healthcare, etc., etc.
Yes, Commissioner Guanzon, I'm going to recap what you said earlier in choosing our leaders. They should be competent and honest and those who care. Did I get that right?
That's right.
So on that note, we're wrapping up. But if you can share to us that you are a Girl Scout.
Yeah, I was. And my mother was president of the Girl Scouts of Negros Occidental Council for many, many years. And that's really one of her identities that stuck in my head when I was a young girl. And I think Girl Scouting, if you're a child, it matters to you because it gives you a chance to socialize. It gives you a chance also to meet new friends and play while learning. I think it's very important that girls can socialize and politicize. So let's keep up the great work, and I hope to be of help to the Girl Scouts of the Philippines more actively someday. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jing Jing.
Stay on a little bit, Commissioner Guanzon. We have Dr. Nina Yuson, our president.
Commissioner Guanzon, this has been an eye-opener for Girl Scouts, and I think by your first statement, it has also challenged us. I think more and more, on understanding political change is taking time in our country. So we have to really plan this step by step and how we can do it, because the Girl Scouts has the promise and law, and it is to love our country. So thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. And we hope to see you volunteer for Girl Scouts.
Thank you, Tita Nina, and thank you, Commissioner Guanzon. I guess that sums up the second part of our program. And just to reiterate what Commissioner Guanzon said, it is girls and women who bear the heavier burden. Hence, we advocate for political rights and active political participation. It is our source of power. Voting is power, and we must exercise that power wisely. We shall now proceed to the awarding of certificates to our esteemed guests. May I request our National Executive Director, Ms. Maria Dolores T. Santiago, to read and present the Certificate of Appreciation.
Good afternoon to all. We would like to thank our two distinguished resource speakers for generously sharing their time with us. And it is my pleasure to present the certificates of appreciation from the Girl Scouts of the Philippines. Can we make it bigger? Hold on. Girl Scouts of the Philippines Certificate of Appreciation presented to Dr. Jayeel Cornelio, Associate Professor and Director, Development Studies Program, Ateneo de Manila University, for his outstanding contribution of knowledge and for sharing his valuable insights with the members of the Girl Scouts of the Philippines in Pilipinas, Nakikinig ka ba sa akin? A webinar on voter education and registration. 31st July 2021 via Zoom. Given under the seal of the Girl Scouts of the Philippines is 31st day of July 2021, signed Ms. Hyacinth B. Bangero, National Secretary and Chairperson of Communications Committee. Yours truly, Maria Dolores T. Santiago, National Executive Director, and Dr. Cristina Lim Yuson, National President. Thank you very much, Dr. Cornelio.
Ma'am Beng, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This must be the most elegant certificate I've ever received. It really is so nice.
We will send you the true copy. This is virtual, but we promise we will send you the true copy. Another certificate of appreciation presented to Honorable Maria Rowena Amelia V. Guanzon, Commissioner on Elections, for her outstanding contribution of knowledge and for sharing her valuable insights with the members of the Girl Scouts of the Filipinas, Nakikinig ka ba sa akin? A webinar on voter education and registration, 31st July 2021 via Zoom, given under the seal of the Girl Scouts of the Philippines, this 31st day of July 2021. Signed, Ms. Hyacinth Bangero, National Secretary and Chairperson of Communications Committee. Yours truly, Maria Dolores T. Santiago, National Executive Director, and Dr. Cristina Lim Yuson, National President. Marami pong salamat, Commissioner Guanzon.
Once again, thank you, Dr. Cornelio and Honorable Commissioner Guanzon, for imparting your knowledge and sharing your time with us in this significant event.
To formally close our event, let us welcome Dr. Christine P. Aranilla, Communications Committee Vice Chairperson, for her closing remarks.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Girl Scouts of the Philippines, again, I would like to thank our distinguished speakers today, Honorable Maria Rowena Amelia V. Guanzon and Dr. Jayeel Cornelio, who both elucidated on the importance of our participation for the forthcoming national election. In parallel with our goal in nation building, exercising our rights and performing our duty as citizens of this country are inherent amongst us Girl Scouts. Doing so allows us the freedom to choose the government leaders deemed qualified and best exemplified the standards we set according to the Girl Scouts promise and law, and leaders who will lead us to achieve our goals as an individual and as a nation. After all, we emulate our very own beloved founders and pillars, suffragist Josefa Llanes Coda and Pilar Hidalgo Lim. Pilipinas, nakikinig ka ba sa akin? Tayo ang Pilipinas. Let our conscience speak and our voice heard. Paano? Magparehistro po tayo at bumoto. Let us be influencer, encourage our families and friends to exercise the right of suffrage. Tayong Girl Scout, di ba laging handa ihanda po natin ang ating mga face mask, face shields, as we troop to COMELEC offices and later on to our respective precincts. This is Girl Scout Christine, congratulating each and every one of you who participated in this webinar for choosing to get involved. Good afternoon, and as I close this successful webinar, may I share this to you, this shout out. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. Mabuhay po tayong mga mamamayang Pilipino at ipagpatuloy po natin ang pagtatayguyod sa ating mahal na bansang Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
That concludes our webinar on voters education and registration. Again, this has been Cadet Girl Scout Aliza Sofia Manondo of Western Mindanao Region.
And Cadet Girl Scout Sirlevi Granali of Visayas Region, your moderators, saying thank you to all our resource persons, guests, titas and ates, and fellow Girl Scouts for your time today. Remember, there is no such thing as a vote that doesn't count or that doesn't matter. It all matters.
Kaya, hashtag magparehistro ka na. Have a great day ahead, everyone.